What's up guys, my name is T2 and welcome to my stuff. Today I'm going to show you how to make this modern desk behind me, even though you can't see it. Let's get on to the build. As usual, I started off by breaking my parts into sections according to my cut list. This entire project is made out of 2 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood and 1 sheet of 3/4 inch plywood. The desk itself consists of 3 parts: the tabletop, the drawers, and the legs. There are 3 drawers on the left side and 2 simple legs made out of plywood on the right side of the desk. I first broke down the big sheets of plywood into smaller sections at the local supplier, and then I brought it onto my table saw to square up a fresh edge and finalize the exact dimension of the parts. If the stock is still too big, I will use my circular saw to break it down and then bring it to my table saw. If you want to make one of these circular saw guide on your own, there is a link in the description below. The first assembly step is to make the outer box that holds the drawers. I started off by assembling the frame and then securing the back panel in place. The construction was simply glue and brat nails. Here you can see I'm using another piece that has the same width of the bottom of the box to hold the side piece while I'm securing it. At that time, I feel like I should go back and reinforce it with some screws, but at the end I only did that one side. I flipped the box upside down and I applied some glue on the top edge of the side panels, and then I fastened it to the top with brat nails. The back panel fits inside the box and it took me a while to get it in place. If I were to go back to when I was designing this desk, I would make the construction a little bit easier. The drawers were also constructed with glue and brat nails. The side panels were first attached to the bottom, and then the back of the drawer gets attached. Everything in this video is built simply because I'm looking for a simple and clean design for the desk, but also at the same time it looks futuristic and versatile. Since I have 3 drawers, I repeated the same process for the other 2 drawers. The way these drawers were built, it is faster if you have a side that has the same length, so you can tack the brat nails in easily with its support. Now that the outer box of the drawer are done, I can move on to installing the drawer slides. I first cut out the spacer according to where the drawer slides would be placed, and then I placed the spacers inside the box with the drawer slides sitting on top of the spacer, and then I can fasten 3 screws that come with the drawer slides. Since I'm right-handed, my right hand is dominant, which is easier for me to fasten screws with that hand. When I'm installing the drawer slides on the right of the cabinet, I first pre-drilled the holes and then fastened the screws because that requires my left hand. For installing the slides on the drawers, I cut out these 1/8 inch shims to place on the drawers from the bottom of the cabinet and place the drawer on top of that. I pulled out a little section of the slide to fasten the screws until 2 screws are fastened. After the 2 screws are in place, I took out the drawer and secured the 3rd screw. For the drawer fronts, I decided to stick with the modern style where the front is inside the drawer. Typically, a drawer front will cover the edges of the cabinet, but to save material and make it modern, I chose to put the front inside the drawer. I used the same 1/16 inch and 1/8 inch shims to space out the drawer fronts evenly and tacked in some brat nails through the front. The handles of the drawers are pretty easy to make too. It is made out of 3 parts. There are two pieces of 1-inch blocks of 3/4 inch plywood followed by a 5-inch long 3/4 inch plywood glued together. I then rounded the corners to smooth the sharp edges on my router table. I sanded it and spray painted them white. To prep for sanding, I first used a dampened rag to wipe the surface of the cabinet so that the wood fibers would stick up. After the surfaces of the cabinet dried, I used my orbital sander with 80 grit followed by a 120 grit, then 220 grit to make the surface nice and smooth, ready for the paint job. After sanding with 80 grit, I stopped and filled in some of the brat nail holes with plastic wood filler. These things are easy to apply, they're pretty handy, and they dry pretty fast. These can hide the imperfection of the wood and make it look much better after you paint it. The tabletop is the easiest part. It is just a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that is 2.5 feet wide by 6 feet long. Since this is the only piece of 3/4 inch plywood I have, I can only have one layer of this top. If you have the opportunity to glue the two pieces of the 3/4 inch plywood together, I highly recommend it, as it provides more thickness and strength over the length of the table to prevent future sagging. To skip the boring sanding and painting part of today's project, let me talk about today's sponsor, Pup Army. If you love dogs, this is a perfect website for you. Pup Army is a small business that sells merchandise about cute dogs and puppies. For example, they have hoodies, t-shirts, and accessories about dogs. Get ready for Christmas by getting one of their hoodies and beanies to get cozy. Aside from their amazing products, here is the best part about Pup Army. Pup Army donates 10% of their profit to dog rescue organizations. This is great because when you purchase one of their products, that means you're also doing a charity by donating to the dog rescue organizations. They also recently launched their own color changing watches, which is cool because the color changes under the sun, and when you're indoor, they revert back to the color white. Pup Army also gave me a discount code for my viewers, so enter T2Stuff at checkout for 20% off. Anyway, please go check them out, show them some love, and once again, thank you Pup Army for sponsoring today's video. Alright, let's get back to the build. To fasten the drawer pulls, I first double-sided taped the pulls onto the front, took the entire drawer out, and then tack it in with some brat nails. After tacking in the brat nails, I recommend to reinforce it with some screws so the pulls doesn't slack over time. To give the table a floating effect, I assembled this riser box to attach to the top of the cabin. Since I don't want to have any visible screws around the table, and I also want the table to be easily disassembled, I measured the inside rectangle of the riser box and cut out a piece of plywood that would fit snugly inside there. Then I marked the location of the riser box onto the backside of my tabletop and secured it with some screws. This allows my tabletop to be secured through that mechanism instead of the screws. For the right side of the tabletop, there are simply two legs, made out of the two strips of plywood for each leg. I cut them out on the table saw and assembled it with some brat nails. As for installation of these legs, I attached a small piece of square inside the two legs so I have a spot to fasten the screws into the tabletop. To give it a unison floaty look, I also added the riser blocks onto the bottom of my cabinet to make sure that it is floating. Alright guys, that'll be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Once again, big shout out to Pup Army for sponsoring today's video. You can check them out in the description box below. or you can follow them on Instagram, also in the description box below. If you haven't already, you can also check out my other videos, or you can go to my website, check me out, or you can follow me on the social media links down below. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay fresh and keep making.